Hey everyone, I am just going to really quickly make sure that my chat is enabled because unfortunately last time it was not. Okay, interesting. I just want to have this chat window up so in case people want to send a message, I see it. And I'm doing another bonus episode today because my last one, I had connection issues with my Starlink. And I think I'm better off just doing another episode. And I had something I wanted to say about this. So anyway, in this video, I want to talk about the attacks that are taking place against Elon. We've done a lot of coverage this week of the way that people are criticizing Elon and his actions in DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. And really, to me, the saddest attack that I've seen is from the crew at Breaking Points. These people are very likable. They're all very smart. Ryan Grimm here on the left, he's an excellent journalist. Emily, she is very smart. She's conservative. I agree with her a lot. And Crystal is a founder of Breaking Points, along with Sagar, who's not in this video. And they got their start. I'm not sure what year it was, but it was basically back when Trump was rising to prominence. And there was this populist movement, as they called it. They framed it as a populist movement. I never fully agreed with that. But there was this populist movement on both the left and the right, in the Bernie wing of the Democratic Party and the Trump wing of the Republican Party. And they originally worked for this organization called The Hill, which is a mainstream media organization, but they had a YouTube show. And this YouTube show looked like a TV show, but it was all on YouTube. And they went and they made all these contrarian arguments and interviewed these lesser known candidates like Andrew Yang. And they really made a name for themselves, and they established themselves as a voice for, in a sense, contrarians and dissidents that are dissatisfied with the political status quo. And they framed this as if they were fighting for a populist political revolution in America. And so the dynamics of this, the original cast was Sagar and Crystal. And Crystal was left-wing. She was pro-Bernie, and Sagar was right-wing, and he was pro-Trump. Now, at the time, there was a very useful alliance between these two perspectives. And one of the reasons for that is that basically there were these intact parties with these incumbent power centers. And so, for example, in the Republican Party, the presumptive nominee was Jeb Bush, the brother of George Bush, the former president, and the son of George Bush's father, also named George Bush, who was also a Republican president. And there was a long line of people who, if Jeb didn't quite make the cut, that would take his place. They came through the system. They were groomed by the Republican establishment and have been preparing all their lives to take the opportunity to serve in the White House for the Republicans. Now, on the Democratic side, there was also a huge establishment, this at the time was Hillary Clinton at the time that they were coming on the scene. Or actually, now I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm getting the years mixed up. I believe they actually came. Did they come on the scene? No, they must have come on the scene in Trump's second. Yes, that's right. They came on the scene not when he was against Hillary Clinton, but when he was running against Joe Biden. But still, like nonetheless, right? Joe Biden was like the establishment wing of the Republican Party, and Bernie Sanders was really giving him a run for his money. And so in both cases, both of these perspectives, the Trumpian perspective and the progressive far left perspective, could come together and generally criticize the establishment. Now, what ended up happening, though, is Trump was such a destructive force in the Republican Party that he completely destroyed the entire establishment, and he reshaped the party. And what happened is now all these people who used to hold immense power in the Republican Party were basically exiled. This is like a lot of neocons have been kicked out of the party or have lost prominence. Like almost all Republican former presidents and presidential candidates are completely disillusioned with the direction of the party. We're talking about Mitt Romney. We're talking about not John McCain because he's dead, but his daughter. We're talking about the Bushes, all of the Bushes, and the George Bush's vice president Dick Cheney, his daughter, or who's Liz Cheney to him? Whatever. Who cares? The point is these people are on the outs in the Republican Party. The Republican Party has been reshaped, and it's still in flux. Hasn't solidified, but it is no longer people from the traditional establishment. It has been reshaped, and so there's people like J.D. Vance is a newcomer. Don Jr., Eric Trump, these people have a lot of influence in the party. There's people like Vivek Ramaswamy, who was super popular. And there's basically a new class of leader, a lot younger, that came in and have taken a huge share of the power. Now, there's still establishment power centers within the party, but largely it has been reimagined. It's very fundamentally different than it used to be. The Democratic Party, on the other hand, has not changed. The Democratic Party is still holding a very firm grip over the incumbents in the establishment have a very firm grip on the Democratic Party. And we see the cracks in that starting to build. But basically, they won. They've been winning up until now. Joe Biden won. Kamala won the nomination. She got it from Joe. They have controlled the narrative. They have controlled the party. They have made Bernie Sanders get in line. They have maintained the status quo. So the Democratic Party still should be thought of as the establishment. Now, the issue is that when basically the populists were fighting a battle against the establishments in both parties, there was kind of this shared mentality that you could have of going up against the system. But when push came to shove, Trump and Elon and the people in the current coalition, the ruling coalition of the Republican Party, they actually won, whereas the progressives did not. The progressives lost. And the issue with that is that that now this sort of quote unquote populist, which I think is a totally wrong framing, now they are actually in power, and now the progressives that were railing against the Democratic establishment have to decide, what do they dislike more, the Democratic establishment or the right wingers who are not traditionally from the establishment? And this just creates a very awkward tension, because this is not, and I don't blame them for this. If you're a left wing, if you're a left winger, I don't blame you for not liking the right wing. But from their perspective, when they do kind of a holistic analysis on net, these so-called left-wing populists actually agree more with the Democratic establishment than they do with the right-wing populists, so to speak. And so they're not just in favor of change, like let's get out the old guard and get in the new guard. Really, they have an ideology. And at the time, they were railing against this thing called the establishment because that was the thing that would advance their ideology. But now that now the opposition is in power and the establishment has been dethroned, they relatively support the Democratic establishment over this newcomer change maker on the other side. So this creates an immense tension. And basically, in my opinion, this show has just kind of gone off the rails. I was consistently watching it for about a year. I mean, I had on and off watched it for many years, but consistently for about a year leading up to the election. And by the time we got to the election, it seemed like the coverage was just so out of touch. It was so delusionally against Trump. And in my opinion, if you analyze the dynamics of the conversations that they had, I hate to say this, but I'm just going to be honest here. My perception is that Crystal was just very, she had very strong emotions one way, and kind of projected a very, let's just say, she would project a lot of judgmental feelings towards these situations. And I'm trying to say this in a delicate way, and I apologize. But the point is that I sense that on this show, Sagar and Emily have a perspective, and I sense that there's kind of an emotional tug of war here. And in the effort to get along with their co-hosts, I perceive that they are perhaps being pulled left, and they're trying to really steelman the other side and say things that are acceptable to the other side that's not going to offend the other side. And I don't see that at all happening from the left-wing side of this show. So the left-wingers have no compromises. They don't they never say good things about the right, unless there's some kind of like backhanded way where it actually is like agreeing with their ideological things. Like they'll say, oh, it's great that, Steve Bannon supports labor unions. So they're saying something nice about Steve Bannon, but really they're just restating their position essentially. And basically it seems to me like the conservative side of the show is kind of being, and I don't mean this, I'm using imprecise language, but there's a sense in which they are being bullied to speak to a more left-wing audience and to appease left-wingers. And essentially though, it's just sad to see that this supposedly people that were against the establishment are now defending the establishment, and they have their reasons. They're going to have their reasons. But at the end of the day, the corruption that is going on with USAID and a lot of these agencies cannot be understated. And there's no defense of it. There's no justification for any of this. I just don't see how you can justify it. And I think it's just ridiculous that they're going at such lengths to smear Elon and to try to make him out to be the bad guy, when clearly the corrupt people at USAID and the CIA and all these other institutions are the ones who deserve the most criticism. And these are the ones who have blocked progressives from taking control of power within the Democratic wing of the government. So that should be, in some sense, an enemy to these so-called left-wing populists. Now, let's just look at the comments here, just before we dive in. Okay, that's a joke. Now look at, someone says, I can't believe I'm rooting for Steve effing Bannon to win anything, but here we are. And then the biggest insult to Trump was his own supporters sharing around the picture of him looking at Netanyahu's butler and calling it MIGA, etc. You go down, and basically there's a few jokes in there. These are all anti-Trump comments. And one thing I just want to point out, this is not a slight on breaking points, but I think it used to be a very balanced show with left and right wing perspectives. If you go to anything that's remotely right wing, you're going to see people flooding it with support for Elon and Doge and Trump. This is a thoroughly, at this point, left wing show. And they unfortunately, I don't think that they did any internal polling to see the political alignment of people that are in their audience. If they did, I think they would have seen a much closer 50-50 split, maybe slightly left wing. And then over time, it's gone very, very left wing. And so anyway, let's react to some of the things that they say, because I think they're super out of touch and just not good, basically. And I think these are smart people. These are good people. I'm not trying to insult them personally. I am criticizing them because I care. I like them and I want them to be better. So that's why I'm putting forth this criticism. And I also think we can learn something from this discussion. And so let's get into it. I'm going to make this bigger. Actually, you know what? I'm going to actually make it bigger a different way. I'm going to drag this to make it bigger. There we go. I think this will be a better way of organizing this stream. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this to a playlist on my channel, sources. These are the sources of everything that I react to. So if you like this kind of content, you like reactions, and you like learning about, I cover a lot of tech. I call this little series that I'm doing about politics my Big Tech Apologist series. So this is just another installment of my Big Tech Apologist series. And I am, I guess I'm Elon Musk's unofficial PR boy. But let's get into this. Let's listen to them.
All right, guys, there was so much going on in the Doge department primarily that we didn't feel like we could wait over the weekend to bring you some updates with the very latest breaking news. So Ryan and Emily have joined me to do a little speed run through some of the top lines. Can't say everything that's going on, but some of the things that are going on. Great to see you guys.
Good to see you. And definitely check out our Natalie Winters interview. If you're not premium subscribers, then you haven't seen it yet. If you are, you watched it Thursday evening, but if you're not, it'll be up later today. It's a good one.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it. What'd you guys get into with her? Because, one of the interesting dynamics that will actually come to in some of these elements that we're going to go through is the sort of Bannon Elon divide. Yeah. Did she have anything to say about that, or how is she thinking about the Trump administration going in as a White House correspondent?
Well, I was going to say, Ryan, Bannon went a lot harder after Musk than Natalie did. And I think that maybe reflects this internal split among especially younger people in the MAGA crowd.
Huh. Interesting.
She did say that, the number one kind of political force that can stand up to Musk is kind of the Bannon wing, the
I
posse.
agree with that. Yeah, because they're not going to listen to me or you. So,
no, they are not.
That's true.
The person who has some credibility and traction with that crowd is Steve Bannon. But, in a lot of ways, he's also at a disadvantage because Elon Musk owns Twitter, and Elon Musk gave $250 million to Trump and helped him get elected and has been given this whole of government mandate and is doing a sort of speed run through the federal government.
That's one way of putting it. Oh, he's just at a disadvantage because he doesn't have a media platform that can distribute, media to lots of different people and all of that. That's true. And he does have a popular podcast, so he has some distribution, but it isn't compared to Elon's. But that is a very pessimistic and cynical way of putting it. I mean, on the other hand, he has less to offer to the MAGA coalition. He's less valuable. This is not just one unified group. There is a diverse group of people who came together to support Trump. When people say, oh, the MAGA coalition this and the MAGA coalition that, they try to speak generally about the entire Trump base. That is very misleading. There are certainly interesting groups within the country, some of which you can call MAGA, but Trump's base is a very complicated coalition of many diverse groups. And it is perfectly valid. Elon is a perfectly valid participant in this. Just because he wasn't originally saying make America great again back in 2016 or whatever, that doesn't invalidate his contribution and his significance to the Trump coalition. There are people who support Trump because of Elon. And Elon helped push Trump over the edge. That is actually a good thing. He has a lot to offer, and he does have leverage relative to Steve Bannon because, relatively speaking, Steve Bannon has spent years in prison and has basically not done anything recently, and it's debatable how much he actually contributed in the first place. We could get into that. I don't want to. I actually like him, and I'm just saying that Elon is bringing things to the table, and that's why he has influence. And he is a significant part of the coalition that people respect and people like within on Trump's side. So this is not just just some sort of frivolous fight or power struggle. Elon has a specific view, and Steve Bannon has a specific view. Neither of these views are canon for MAGA. Both of these are up. MAGA is up for grabs. The Trump coalition is up for grabs. It's a evolving, ever-changing group of people that will update their views as they have more information, and people will go in and out of that coalition. There will be realignments, and there is nothing it's true that Steve Bannon has more credibility than left-wing people. because the left-wing people spent all of their credibility being hysterically opposed to Trump and basically falling for every single scandal put out by various groups that were trying to smear him and saying, well, maybe it's true. Maybe he did work for Russia. Maybe he did do this and that. And basically they've been the boy who cried wolf so many times that now they really can't put any credible claim against Trump. And so it is up to people within Trump's coalition to make this point. I think that was a great point. However, it's not, the way that they're framing this is not accurate in my opinion. Let's keep listening, because I also want to say, I don't think that Bannon and Elon are actually opposed. We're going to hear what they say more, and then I'm going to get to that. I think that they slightly disagree on H-1B visas and a few things, and there are a few things that maybe Steve Bannon doesn't think about very much, and so he's jumped to some conclusions where I think he's wrong, and there may be some issues where Elon is also wrong, but the point is 99% they agree, 1% they disagree. It's okay to debate and go after people and attack people because you disagree with them. That's healthy. It's healthy debate. That doesn't mean that they're going to war, but let's let them make the argument, and we will continue reacting. How do I push play here? Okay, here we go.
We've already seen, the way that his wishes have been enacted, whether it's, Trump's preference on H-1B or the gutting of things like the SEC, the CFPB, the removal of Lena Khan. These are not directions that a Steve Bannon would want to go in. So I think it's one of the central fights to watch. Yep. So anyway, guys, definitely.
I think you way overestimate the degree to which someone like Steve Bannon cares about those things. These are darlings of the left, the SEC, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, however you say that. Lena Khan, he doesn't like Lena Khan. He may be anti-corporation in some cases, and he's anti-tech censorship for sure. And he's mad at tech because they have censored. And so insofar as people are against the tech as a power center, he is happy, but that does not mean that he supports Lena Khan. Lena Khan is a liberal. She is an elitist. She is young and naive and has lots of horrible ideas. So he could, maybe he does like Lena Khan, but I don't think he is, he's not a Lena Khan stan. I doubt that. I doubt that this is a big issue for him. Even if he mildly likes her, that's not important to him. So if Elon Musk is against Lena Khan, he's not going to say, oh, that's a deal breaker for me, let's go to war. He does care about certain issues relating to nationalism and immigration, and I'm not the biggest expert on his perspective, but Elon agrees with a lot of those things. There's some disagreement, but it's not nothing that you can't bridge. Let's continue listening.
Definitely check that interview out. Let me go ahead and pull up our first element here to sort of set the mood for all of the things we're going to discuss, which is we've got the new Time magazine cover that you can see here with President Elon Musk being depicted. A lot of people, Emily, sort of speculating this could get under Trump's skin. I don't know. I have been expressing a lot of skepticism that there's any sort of near-term breakup coming here. What are your thoughts? By the way, when I first saw this, I actually thought it was AI until I had to go and confirm it. But it is not AI. This is in fact their new cover.
Yeah, I mean, there's of course speculation. This seems like a math. It seems like an equation, right? That's destined to have one outcome, which is that you can't have two men like this acting in concert for as long as they already have, because Donald Trump notoriously gets jealous of other people being called president. This Time magazine cover is almost designed to make him hate Elon Musk because he's sort of notorious for feeling threatened and feeling like he loses credit and all of that.
Where are people getting this idea? This is so stupid. Who thinks that this is going to work? Like people are just that manipulatable. Oh, they said he's the president, therefore I'm insecure. This is, at this point, this is a meme. Okay? He knows this. He knows that they're just saying that. And it just doesn't hold much credibility. I mean, do you really think that, first of all, a person like Trump, he's very arrogant, and he doesn't. I don't think that when you kind of paint him in a negative light, that he actually believes that anyone would really buy into that. He probably would assume, even errantly, that people would, view him more positively than they actually do. So I don't even believe that in the first place, that he would even fall for that fact that anyone would actually think this. And like at this point, like he knows that everyone says to him, "Hey, we're doing this to manipulate Trump." So someone will tell him that. He will know. Like literally, I've heard this said so many times. You think Trump doesn't know that when they do this, they're trying to manipulate him? If he gets manipulated by that, he would literally, like, come on. That's not going to work. I can't believe people spend time trying to say, "Oh, Elon Musk is president. Haha, reverse psychology. Trump's going to," like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, if he got mad at Elon for that, Elon would just send him a video clip of 50 people talking about how they're trying to manipulate Trump. I mean, there's just no way. There's just no way. And so I think the reason why this happened is like this meme caught on is because at one point there was some controversy with Steve Bannon being considered like the actual president, and there was some news article about that, and people called him like the actual president, and Trump isn't the actual president. And then after that, he had a falling out with Steve Bannon. So first of all, we don't know the truth of that. We really don't know the truth of that. So that is complete speculation. I doubt that that's even the reason why they had a bit of a falling out. I think these things are way more complicated than that very simplistic version. I mean, people, they try to frame Trump as being very dumb. And I'm not saying he's the smartest person on earth, but he's at least of a normal intelligence. I mean, he's more than normal, but at least. And any normal person would not get tricked by this. "Oh, Time magazine put him as a president on the cover." Like, come on. Like, first of all, Trump benefits from Elon. They need each other. They both reinforce each other's power. They're a good team. There's no reason for him to ditch Elon. Second of all, Trump has been through a lot. He really deserves to be here right now. Say what you want about him. He lost and he came back and he won, and he was shot at, and the government went at him full force, and he survived, and now he's here, and everyone knows it, and he won the popular vote, and he won the Electoral College. He earned this. He's not insecure about this. I mean, come on. That's so ridiculous. And there's a lot of powerful enemies against him, and he needs allies. So I'm not saying that they won't fall out. They can, but this is not going to, like, saying that Elon Musk is the real president. That's just the dumbest strategy. That's not going to work. There's 0% chance that works. Anyway, let's continue hearing what they have to say.
When we see depictions of other people in his orbit that look exactly like this magazine cover. So, on the other hand,
well, that's kind of how he and Steve Bannon had their falling out, right? In his first term, very quickly, where, Bannon was kind of taking too much of the attention and going and freelancing and just like, talking to the press in ways that Trump didn't approve of or whatever. And he got axed very quickly for much more minor transgressions, much more minor power grabs than what Elon is executing right now.
Well, and I would just say, on the other hand, what makes me think they still have a ways to go before this comes to a head, even though it's amazing that it's already not come to a head, is that they both have so much to lose. Now, from Elon's perspective, the reason that he is doing all of this is because it is giving him vast opportunities. Maybe charitably he has some type of ideological investment in it, but he also has vast resources now at his disposal for power, for money. Right. But I think for him, power is probably more important. And he can have some of that power taken away if the president of the United States says, "You're out of here. I'm canceling these contracts. Bye, SpaceX. Bye." It seems ridiculous, but that's all very possible. And from Trump's perspective, Musk is a source of power. So, people can debate how much on each end, but the bottom line is they both have a lot to lose from that relationship being blown up in a way that it wasn't the same with Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
I agree with this, but I think that in every accusation is a confession. And this is often thrown around a lot that, oh, Elon Musk, he wants power, he wants money, he's going to enrich himself, he's going to do all of these things. I don't think that people know at all what he's thinking. And they don't, I often hear this from people who are from a very different cultural sphere than Elon Musk. I consider myself to be someone who is in the tech world, talk to people who are very like-minded, very few degrees of separation from Elon. And that's in no way a humble brag. I have no like connection or like status in society. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when I think about how I would conduct myself as someone who probably can relate a lot more to Elon, and my friends as well can relate a lot more to him, and I think about how they would act, that's probably not what they would be thinking. I've listened to a lot of Elon Musk content. I study him quite a bit. I'm inspired by him, and that doesn't. I think that I have a decent understanding of the way that he thinks, and that does not at all seem like an appropriate characterization of why he's doing this. I think that there are several reasons why he's doing this. One is it's true that he's afraid to lose, but that's because he's afraid of retribution. If he does want to make positive change, he wants to do it for society's sake, and he also wants to do it for his own sake, but he's not trying to rent seek. He's not a rent seeker. He's against rent seeking. He has always stood for meritocracy, and there's problems with meritocracy. We can talk about some of these debates around if everything should be meritocratic and how should you implement that. And Elon sometimes is on the side of meritocracy where I don't agree with him. However, it's the thing is that he wants to actually build things. He doesn't want to just get money and power without doing it. That's not going to do more for him at this point. He has the money, he has the power. What he wants is he wants to be unbridled by things that are needlessly holding him back, regulations and inefficiencies that are making him unable to do his job. He just wants to get to Mars at this point. If he gets to Mars, he will basically be happy. And maybe if he can make a big dent in AI safety along the way with Neuralink and XAI, he will die a happy man. And that's really my read on Elon. I think it's genuine. And now Emily is a good person. I'm not saying that she is confessing to anything, but what she's doing is she's influenced by people who, by political commentators who she follows, because she is embedded in the Beltway. And as a result of that, she is being influenced by these people to take up this perspective and assume that this is Elon Musk's motives when she doesn't really know much about Elon Musk. And these people, in this case, when these people that she's learning from, I say that this accusation is a confession, because that's exactly what they do. And that's what's being exposed, is that they are using these systems to enrich themselves, to embezzle money, and to defraud the public. And it's extremely corrupt, and they want power. And that's why they do it. And so they're just projecting that onto him. Oh, he's taking power. Oh, that's what he must be doing. But when in reality, he's just auditing. He's just bringing things to light. And if you look at the content of what he's exposing, I'm sorry, you can't twist this. He's exposing real corruption, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I will always be in favor of that. So let's keep listening.
And the way somebody who's close to Trump described it to me once, that they said liberals don't quite understand the way that the President Musk insult works on Trump. He's like, that doesn't really bother Trump. Like if somebody else calls somebody else President Bannon, President Trump, whatever, or President Musk, whatever, they said the one that would get under his skin would be Vice President Trump. Like the suggestion that, okay, you're not a co-equal here. You're actually the vice president here. You're the one who's being told what to do by this guy. That would drive him nuts.
Interesting insight into the Trumpian psychology.
I doubt that. I mean, with what precision do you know that? That's just a ridiculous, it's just ridiculous. Like it's like the president thesis, except more absurd. Oh, it's because if you call him vice president, like as if there's a magic incantation that makes Trump, that you can just say to make Trump hate Elon. It's not going to work. It's so blatant. It has to be genuine. Like if Trump genuinely felt threatened and he genuinely felt insecure and someone was really actually gaining more respect and he felt like it was zero sum and there was an actual power struggle, that's a different thing. But when you're just saying that, like you're just Time Magazine, like some like basically anti-Trump outlet that is owned by Mark Benioff, who was a benefactor of Kamala Harris and all of this stuff, that's not going to sway him. It doesn't matter if you say Vice President Trump or President Elon, like none of that's going to work. It's just ridiculous. And the fact that people talk about this so much is absurd. It's like a waste of time.
So this was actually kind of surprising to me. We've gotten this, reporting, much to Elon's chagrin, about who some of these Doge hackers or apparatchiks or boys or kids or whatever you want to call them actually are. And we are now learning why he was very protective over some of their identities. One Doge staffer has been forced to resign over racist posts. The reason I was surprised is because I didn't know it was possible to go so far in the direction of racism at this point in time that it was a cancelable offense. I thought cancel culture was totally over and none of this would matter. But
there are standards here, Crystal.
There are at least some standards here at play. So, this was really brazen stuff. This guy who...
Sorry, I don't want to miss anything, so I'm pausing it frequently. So again, do you hear what she just said? She just said, this is why Elon didn't want their identities to be found. What do you mean? So you're saying that Elon knew that he made racist posts under an anonymous account and that's why he didn't want anyone to know who they were? Like that's the reason? I mean, maybe that's not what she's saying, but that's the implication. And it's just weird to put it that way. Like maybe you don't want people to dox them because there's a variety of things that can happen, including digging up stuff. But it's not that he knew that he was racist and he's like, I want to get my racist guy named Big Balls in there. I mean, that's just not, I doubt that that's what happened. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's just like, why would you even assert that? Why would you say it that way? It's overly negative and it's just not like a realistic framing of the actual situation. It's completely uncharitable. But yeah, let's continue listening about to this situation.
Who was kind of a central figure in the Treasury takeover, Marco Elez, a 25-year-old. He is the guy who actually was changing the code. This is according to Josh Marshall at TPM, was actually changing the code at the Treasury payment system, reportedly to make it easier for them to freeze funding and potentially to make it easier to hide their tracks about what they were doing in terms of funding freezes. So he was a very significant player in all of this, not like a side character. And his social media accounts were uncovered. He said things like, just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. You could not pay me to marry outside of my ethnicity, normalize Indian hate, and also advocated for an immigration policy based on eugenics. So, kind of as blatant as it could possibly get. But I think, a small indication that there are still some limits in place.
I don't know.
So, okay. First of all, I don't agree with racism, okay? Obviously. And like my wife is Indian, so I don't love like the anti-Indian thing. With that said, why is this happening? Why are people investigating this guy? This is unnecessary. Look, they're not arguing about the corruption that was exposed. They're not talking about the immense, just incredible corruption and embezzlement, and the scale of fraud is unbelievable. They're not talking about that. Instead, they're focusing on who is the guy who's writing some code and like doing these tasks without any decision-making power to shut anything down or anything. And they're not saying he's like a national security risk, like a spy or anything like that. There's no actual real reason to go after him. They're just literally looking into everybody and seeing if anyone did anything that is not relevant to the job that is wrong, which, okay, there's some fairness to that. Like, I think you do need to be held accountable for what you do. And, when you're working for the government, you have to do things that you have to be the kind of person that people in the government want to hold that job, because at some point the people are going to hold the government accountable. That's part of being a democracy. So if you do things that most people find to be despicable, then you're not going to stay in government for long. But this shouldn't have ever come up. They shouldn't have been like, this is dirty. This is literally dirty. The fact that people were digging into these people, first of all, they call them kids. They say these boys, these kids are doing this stuff, which is already it's an exaggeration. They're in their 20s. They're competent. They're super competent engineers. In fact, it's nice that they don't have a lot of baggage. And they can really dedicate themselves to this. And I think it's a good age to be doing this stuff. And they're not making decisions. Trump's making decisions, and Elon is making some decisions and running it by Trump. But these people don't have power. They're implementing. And so on one end, people are calling these boys and kids and all this stuff. And now they're going and they're trying to smear them and get dirt on them. And like, this is blackmail. This is what blackmail is. So people should not be so self-righteous in their when they're basically listening to a deep state intelligent agent investigating a kid that they admit is a kid or a boy or someone very young and smearing them in the media, all because they are they're tasked with the job to implement something and they're not actually in a position of power. I mean, that is just like, does it matter that this kid is the one that's in the Treasury Department? You can have someone else do it. This is an easy job. I mean, it takes some skill, but this is not like, he's not like the only one who can do this. And now they put a wrench in that. Like, they are just smearing a kid. They called him a kid and then they smeared him. There's nothing moral about that. And I do believe in giving young people second chances, but I also think I appreciate. So this was recorded before, so they don't know that he actually did get uncanceled, and he did. And partly the reason that was possible is because he wasn't really canceled. He was smeared by the establishment media, and a few people who watched that got mad and said stuff, and then he got fired because of the pressure from that. But really, nobody actually cared. It didn't go viral. There wasn't a mass grassroots outrage. And actually what happened is they reinstalled him because they realized that this was fake. It was a manufactured crisis. It was all another manipulation technique. So I don't agree with the statements. I think that he really needs to show remorse for posting this. And it's just beyond inappropriate to post something like that. And he's entitled to his beliefs, but he especially shouldn't be like, if he wants to work in government, he shouldn't be saying stuff like that. It's just not okay. And even though that was in the past, it's like, you don't say that at the moment. You don't say something controversial in the moment, because you know if you want to go on and do great things, it will affect you. So if he shows remorse, let him in. That's my opinion. But I don't think that, so I think he should be punished. He should be reprimanded. It just should be a mark against him, but we shouldn't exaggerate how bad it is. And I am personally happy that he was let back in. But anyway, let's continue listening.
Activity.
Your initial instincts may prove correct. Elon Musk today tweeted, bring back Doge's staffer who made inappropriate statements via a now deleted pseudonym, and a survey. And yes, no, after 370,000 votes, 78% of his followers say yes, bring the guy back.
Bring back the eugenicist to have control over our
pseudonym.
He's not a eugenicist. Look, young people have crazy ideas. I had crazy ideas when I was younger. It's just how it is. And like, if there's a lot of radical communists who say, like, kill the rich people, put them against the wall and shoot them and stuff like that. This is super common on the left wing. So it's like, come on, get off your freaking high horse. It's ridiculous. And the other thing I'll say is, so someone had posted about this. I can't remember who it was. And then someone else commented, and this was on X, saying, but shouldn't there be consequences for the things that he said? And I don't think that that's really up to us necessarily to ensure that he has consequences for having these racist thoughts and posting about it. I think, yes, we should hold him to a high standard. We say you have to have a certain code of ethics when you work here. You have to be above board. You have to be beyond reproach, because otherwise you are vulnerable, and they will take you out if you consistently do this type of behavior. He needs to clean up his act. But it's not up to us to make sure that he suffers. Just because he has some thoughts that we don't like, that's not our job. We should introspect, look inwards, get ourselves in order. That's what we should do as people. If he has wrong-headed beliefs, this is going to lead him in a bad direction in life, and he'll end up somewhere much worse off than where he would otherwise be. And so let his bad ideas lead him astray, and let that be his problem. You don't need to enforce that. Just focus on yourself. That's my personal opinion. Let's keep watching though.
Pseudonym was Big Balls, as people probably know. So Big Balls. So there's a reply under this quote. It says, Big Balls deserves a second chance. Seriously, though, have a talk to him about the racist stuff. Not cool. And Elon Musk replied to that and said, true. So it sounds like Musk is going to have a talk to Big Balls and bring him back.
Elon Musk, the guy who did, according to Ryan and I and many others, although not Emily, a Heil Hitler, and also is out tweeting about how white South Africans only should be allowed to immigrate to the country. But he's, drawing the line at this type of racism. Emily, go ahead.
Well, hasn't Steve Bannon called Elon Musk? Hasn't he said, I don't need a racist South African? I'm paraphrasing him. But
I believe what he said
that?
is he name-checked not just Elon, but some of these other cast of characters are South Africans as well. You guys may know better than me. I think is David Sachs, Peter Thiel,
David
maybe.
Sachs.
Anyway, he said, why are these people involved? The white
Peter
South
Thiel's
Africans are the most racist people on the planet, is, I believe.
So, okay. By the way, shout out to Simon. Thanks for participating in the chat. He says introspection is often key. In his honest opinion, I completely agree. We should be doing more of that. At the end of the day, the government is a complex system, and society is a complex system. And the scale and the immense complex dynamics that occur in this system that we call society is beyond our comprehension. Like, you can't predict the stock market. You can't predict what's going to happen in the future. This is a fundamentally unknowable thing. And there's just only a limited degree to which we can steer outcomes, even if we're powerful, even if we're the president or we're running up the Department of Government Efficiency. We really cannot steer the course of history. We are but a single player amongst many, and all of these interactions in society will add up together, and it's not going to be driven by one person. It's fundamentally uncontrollable. And so the future is out of your hands. You cannot shape this nation to be in your image. There are many reasons why everything happens, and even if you are out of the game, these forces will still take place, and there are things that are more powerful than you. So what I recommend to people is stop worrying so much about affecting political change. Just voice your opinion, participate in the system, but don't overdo it. Don't assume that you are going to actually control what happens in the future. Just have a good faith effort for doing the right thing and participating. And then focus in your personal life about being a good person and a moral person, and take care of your family, take care of your friends, take care of your neighbors, do things that you know can make a difference in people's lives. And that's how you're going to lead the best possible life. Politics, it's a dark thing. You're going to go down a dark path, and you're not going to be happy. That's just my personal opinion. But yeah, let's, and now I paused it here because I wanted to say, this is so stupid again. First of all, smearing South Africans, white South Africans, like, this is not, Elon Musk is not thinking about South Africa. This is not an important thing to him. There's no evidence that he's racist, first of all. Second of all, it's just like saying, oh, Germans, oh, you must be a Nazi. Like, it's just ridiculous. I hate that people are basically like they've literally said, look, he's from South Africa, so that's why he wants to bring back apartheid, and that's why he's a Nazi, and that's why and then they said, oh, he is trying to destroy U.S. aid because U.S. aid funded some organizations that fought against apartheid. That is just pure conjecture, and it's actually just pure fiction. It's not even, a conjecture should at least have some basis. There's no basis for that. It's absurd. And it's actually, it's racist and offensive, first of all, to just say, oh, someone's from a country, therefore we're going to lump them in with some historical event. He didn't do that. So stop holding it over his head. He was born in South Africa. He moved to the United States at a very young age. It's just irrelevant. It's irrelevant. And also, David Sachs is Jewish. He's not even white. Where are we going with this? This is crazy. Just because there's several South Africans in one place, it doesn't mean that they're going to implement apartheid. It's absurd. That's like saying, oh, there's some black people, they're going to do a riot or they're a gang. That's not true. There's no evidence for this. There's no basis. It's beyond crazy that they're actually seriously saying that his motives are driven by the fact that he is South African. Let's continue listening, though.
Believe what his phrasing was specifically.
Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah.
They're certainly in the competition.
Yes, they absolutely are. It's a very stiff.
There are lots. So they just said that South Africans are the most racist people in the world. White South Africans. I don't know that to be true. It may be true, but there's a lot of racist people in the world. So that's whatever. It's a joke, but still, it's kind of, it's just also tiresome. When are we going to kind of move past this point?
Stiff competition in this world, but yes, they're in it.
Indeed. So we may not have seen the end of
every single attempt to smear him is taken. Notice this. Oh, he's South African. Oh, he's a white South African. Oh, he must want that. He must want the worst things that they've done. He must want to implement that. He must hate Nelson Mandela, and he must hate black people. And it's any single thing. Oh, he has a government contract. He must be trying to, get paid more from the government. It's just every single thing they can find that he did, they spin it negative. There's never once a charitable interpretation of anything that he has done. He goes like this. Oh, that was a Nazi salute. Even though there's no reason that he would do that. Why would he do a Nazi salute? It doesn't even make any sense. Let's keep watching.
The active eugenicist and taking control of the Treasury system. Good to know. Thank you for that update, Ryan.
Taking control of the Treasury system. They say that they're taking control. What is taking control of the Treasury system? You mean they're sending payments to people? No, they're not taking control. They're auditing. This is just blatantly false negative spin. And it's so sad because I like these people so much. But why are they doing this? Why are they so insistent on looking at everything through the most negative light? It's have you seen that meme of the mental gymnastics where the guy's jumping over the dumpster and flying over a car? This is what it is. Everything is so bad, it's catastrophic. They're taking control. One billionaire is taking control, and there's a racist guy named Big Balls who's controlling the Treasury, and it's because he's a Nazi who loves Hitler, and he also loves South Africa, and he wants apartheid, and he wants to go after the people who are against apartheid, and he just wants power, and he wants to enrich himself. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. This is nobody is even that. Everything is more complex than that. Why don't you try to see both sides? Why don't you speak to both sides? I can criticize him. Now, I'm not doing that because, and I did speak a little bit about how I disagree with Elon on certain issues, related to, for example, meritocracy. But we want to we need to hear. I'm just trying to address what they're saying. I wish they would have a more balanced approach. Let's keep listening, though.
I also wanted to get to the actual latest in the feud with Elon and Steve Bannon, because I do think this is a really important political dynamic to watch. Because as we were mentioning before, liberals, leftists, Democrats pushing back on what Doge is doing is not going to have much of an impact. But if you have significant parts of the MAGA coalition really dividing over this, that could be a more significant challenge for them. So the latest is Musk responding here to Bannon. They say he torches Bannon to rekindle MAGA civil war. It's the Daily Beast. It's a little bit of a clickbaity headline, but I'll tell you what he said. Elon Musk torched Steve Bannon on Thursday, rekindling a MAGA civil war from Trump's transition period. The world's richest man refused to stay quiet on on X after he learned his podcaster foe had lightly criticized the Department of Government Efficiency's priorities. Quote, Bannon is a great talker, but not a great doer. What did he get done this week? Nothing. So that was the torching, the reported torching from the Daily Beast. Emily, your thoughts on this?
I mean, that's the opposite how most people in Trump world see Bannon. He's seen as somebody who's actually the doer who like mobilizes people. One thing Ryan and I talked about with Natalie Winters is how powerful the War Room podcast is at mobilizing like a grassroots, response whenever Bannon is concerned.
They really radicalized a lot of people on COVID in particular. I mean, that was when.
So, okay, again, I completely reject this framing. First of all, Bannon is not a doer. He isn't doing that much. Like, he has a podcast. So that's just a fact. He may have a good podcast. He may have some influence, but he is not doing nearly as much as Elon is doing. There's no way you can compare this. He did help Trump get elected in some ways. He's been helpful. Like, I'm not saying he's useless. I like him. Again, I think he seems perfectly nice to me. But Elon has done a lot. He has done a lot, and he's currently going, he is going into the belly of the beast and reforming and auditing and pushing. And this is something that no one else is willing to do. The amount of opposition that he's getting is immense. Nobody would be willing to take this risk and to actually do this. And we should be eternally grateful for him that he is willing to take this risk, because other people who have tried to look into U.S. aid, they've been threatened. And USAID has not complied. They've pushed back. I mean, Trump went against the system a bit in his last term, and they tried to impeach him. They tried to put him in jail. The system hits back hard, and people are scared to go against it. And that's why reforms never happen. That's why nothing ever gets repealed. And this is why we're in this situation. So we should be very thankful to Elon for doing that. There is no comparison. And I think that it is legitimate when met with some criticism to point this out. I think it's legitimate. Maybe it was a little bit too antagonistic and not needed, but it is a valid point. And then the other thing is, again, I object to this framing of the MAGA coalition. Like, this calling this one group MAGA, and that's defined as what Steve Bannon believes or something, or Steve Bannon is very MAGA aligned. Like, that whole perspective is totally wrong. There is a group of people there's many different groups of people who support Trump. There is a group of people who have immigration as a very, as a top issue. But there are different levels to the rabbit hole. There are people who just hear about immigration and they think, yeah, I agree. We should get the border under control and deport immigrants. There's those people, and those are normal people. They're not in some kind of political echo chamber or anything. They're just normal people, and that's what they believe. And then there's this online MAGA group, which, again, I don't have any bad feelings about them, but this is a very small and relatively, they're very passionate, but they don't make up the whole coalition. And these are people who listen to everything Steve Bannon says and all these other people, and they have all these opinions very strongly held on immigration and more, and they're very terminally online, and they're just enmeshed in this culture. That's really how people like to conceive of MAGA, but that's actually just one small piece of what you could call the MAGA pie. And Elon is a legitimate part of MAGA, or at the very least the Trump coalition. And it just depends on how you define MAGA. But there's no monopoly on being a ardent Trump supporter. I know a lot of people who are former Democrats who supported Trump, and the reason that they did that is because they were so disillusioned with the corruption in the Democratic Party and in the institutions, and they saw him as standing up against that. So think about that for a sec. Why are those people, like, that is probably the bulk of people who supported Trump. Why are their opinions not taken as seriously as people who have a very specific view on immigration? Immigration is just one issue. And another thing I'll say about immigration, and I actually disagree with Trump and MAGA on immigration. I do. And the thing is, but we can put that aside. I don't think anyone really cares about immigration. There's a few online people who really care about immigration, but people care only, like, they care about it nominally, but they don't actually care. It's a very abstract thing. It doesn't affect you. Like there could be someone who comes over the border and maybe in some sense you lose your job if enough of those things happen, or the prices of things go up or down or whatever. It doesn't matter what you think happens with immigration. This is such a diffuse effect that only affects certain people, and it's very slow, and you don't feel the pain. If we let in 1 million immigrants today, and I live in a border town, by the way, if we let in 1 million immigrants to my town, I wouldn't even notice. It wouldn't make a single difference in one day. Now, I'm not saying it has no consequence. There's great theoretical reasons why this is an important issue. I personally don't really care that much about it, which is why, even though I don't agree with restricting immigration in the same way that Trump does, I still support him. But it's like saying, like, what do you think what do you think our regulations of banks should be? I mean, at the end of the day, do people care about that? Yes, but it's not directly affecting most people unless they work at a bank or unless they're doing business with banks. And so I think that's the boat that most people are in. So first of all, like, I wouldn't even say that is a hard requirement for being MAGA per se. But you also have to realize that the Trump coalition is bigger than anything that could be called MAGA. There's also, for example, neoconservatives that support him. And this is less in this term, but there have been supporters of Trump who are basically have a very non-Trumpian foreign policy. They want lots of intervention, lots of war. So, for example, like Lindsey Graham, you could see Lindsey Graham going on TV saying that Trump should beat Kamala. So in a sense, maybe he doesn't love Trump, but he was a Trump supporter in the most recent election. He's part of Trump's coalition. He's kind of antagonistic while also being a supporter overall. On net, he is pro-Trump. So again, that he has no overlap with Bannon and no overlap with Musk and no overlap, very little overlap with Trump, but yet he's still part of the coalition. And I think there's many little groups that add this up, and just the people that happen to agree with Steve Bannon and everything, that is not the definition of MAGA. There's probably more people in the world that like Elon Musk and that supported that like Elon Musk and agree with Elon Musk rather than people with Bannon. Elon Musk is probably more popular. If you look at all Trump voters, I bet more of them like Elon Musk relative to Bannon. And they also probably have stronger opinions about Elon Musk rather than Bannon. Bannon is actually not that known. If you talk to a lot of normal Trump voters, they don't even know who that is. So for people who like politics, yeah, he's a big deal, but that is a shrinking portion of the Trump coalition, as it's a big tent and he's winning the popular vote, he's winning the electoral college. The message has to change as you bring in more people. It evolves over time. And at the end of the day, MAGA in its old makeup lost. He lost. And you could say it was stolen if you believe that, but you still lost and you still got stolen from. So I don't know, you're still a loser. And it's not personal. And it's not an attack. And I actually like and agree with a lot of the stuff. So we're not adversaries here if you disagree with me. But at the end of the day, that wasn't the way to win. It didn't work. And so you need to adjust course a bit. And so the last thing I'll say is Emily here, she's siding a lot with Bannon, but she is an evangelical Christian, and that is not MAGA. There's a weird overlap there. That is its own thing. And at the end of the day, like that's a fundamentally different perspective. So you can't even call her like a representative to say what MAGA is. Evangelicals vote their own way, and they are a reliable voting bloc. They've always voted for people who are pro-life, and that is not the same thing. Like, so they would be happy to support Romney. They would be happy to support Bush. As long as people are pro-life, evangelicals fall in line with that. So she's not even really speaking from a place of extreme credibility when speaking to what the MAGA coalition is. Let's keep watching, though.
War Room. It wasn't originally like War Room Pandemic or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was, actually, now that you mentioned that. And so I hope it's true that So here's the way that I would put it. I think Donald Trump and Steve Bannon know Trump's voters more than Elon Musk knows Trump's voters. And I think Trump knows that Bannon knows his voters more than Elon Musk knows his voters. One interesting thing that Batya Ungar-Sargon reported in Newsweek is that when she talked to somebody in the know about this as to whether Donald Trump told Bannon to tamp it down, Bannon has not been told to tamp down his attacks on Elon Musk. And obviously Trump pays attention to what Steve Bannon is saying. So I want it to be true that because Elon Musk is like slapping MAGA in the face repeatedly on different issues. So I want that to be true. I just don't think we have a definitive answer to it yet. I would bet that Bannon would win that, though he doesn't have the money and power that Elon Musk does, just because Trump realizes that he is popular because of his voters, and his voters aren't just a cult. There are, there's a slice of it that's absolutely cultish, and he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. But at the same time, I don't know that we have a good answer to who would fully win that tug of war.
Again, assuming that voters support Bannon is just fundamentally wrong. Bannon represents a small subset of the Trump base. And yes, Trump is beholden to his voters. That is the most important thing to him. He has to answer to them. If they're going to be upset, he's going to be upset. I agree, but that is not represented by Steve Bannon. It's not like most Trump supporters are these people who watch War Room on Rumble and all this stuff. Like literally half the country voted for Trump, more than half the country, or out of politically active people. And they are not all following, agreeing with, or watching Bannon. He does not represent that. He represents a strain of what can be called MAGA. He does not define MAGA. Elon Musk is dark MAGA. He's also MAGA. He has his own thing. And as I was saying, he has just as many, if not more, followers. So there's no reason that Bannon would have like more credibility than Musk. They're entitled to their disagreements, but you wouldn't just default to listening to what Bannon says over Musk. That's just totally reading it wrong.
Emily, when you say that Elon Musk is, I think you said slapping MAGA on a number of issues, like when you say that, what do you mean by that?
I mean, obviously H-1B is the big one. That one's really significant. I'm super curious to see what he does with the CFPB. That's like seems as though it's on the chopping block in the next week, maybe like in the next couple of hours. We could see what happens with that. And the CFPB is not like super well known in MAGA world, but has done some things that are good for MAGA world, and
it's like an anti-scam agency basically, and it's returned dollars to consumers who've been scammed. And it's what Mark Andreessen and Mark Zuckerberg both went on Joe Rogan's podcast to take aim at.
Yeah, well, then there's also the issue of TikTok, and
Okay. So first of all, this is just not in touch with reality. First of all, H-1B visas. There was a big heated disagreement. Nobody cares that much about that. I mean, some people really do, I guess, but it's a small amount of immigration into this country. It's not a major issue. I get that it's an important issue, but it's not the kind of thing that would just absolutely fundamentally drive a wedge between two people who have different views. It's just not that important. Even if you are an immigration hardliner, if you're only just disagreeing about a small amount of immigration, you're not going to completely throw a relationship under the bus just because you don't have absolute consensus with someone. It's a small area to disagree. And on net, Elon Musk is very much aligned with Bannon on immigration. But yes, they do disagree on this one thing. And that was basically the only thing that there is to even say that there's any daylight between them. Now, and that's the basis for their whole disagreement. And the reason we're having this discussion is that. But the second thing that I'll say is that, this other stuff, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau or whatever it is, nobody cares about that. Literally, you think that people are going to be like so upset about that being audited, really, or shut down or anything? He doesn't care about that. Bannon doesn't care about that. Nobody cares about that. That's like Elizabeth Warren is the only person who cares about that. Nobody cares about that. That's just an irrelevant thing in people's minds. Like, imagine you can get all your policies, pass all your favorite policies, and do everything and enact your political change according to your will, except that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau ends up being abolished. You're going to take that. You don't care. It's not a deal breaker. It's not a big issue. And then just what was the other thing that she said? I'm not sure, but the point is like, these are such minor issues where there may be a tiny disagreement and a tiny like philosophical difference, but these are not important, especially not to voters. Voters don't care about this wonky policy stuff. Like, this is not the kind of policy that voters care about. This is like details. Nobody even knows about this stuff. And Bannon, I guarantee you that he doesn't care. Now, I don't want to go on too long on this. I think that I've made my point in kind of exposing the biased coverage here. That's just basically, it's so uncharitable that it's just practically useless. And it's just reinforcing anti-Trump, anti-right-wing, anti-Musk bias. It's not actually good news coverage. And it's sad because I really like these people and I want them to do better. So if you guys see this video by any weird chance, I doubt you will, but that's why I'm doing this. I'm sorry for being harsh. That's just my style. Now, what I want to say though, is I want to hit home an important point here. Let me just zoom in really quick here. Okay, look, listen to me. Steve Bannon was politically persecuted by the deep state. He was systematically attacked by Democrats and democratic institutions, and he has been smeared to no end by the establishment media. Do you think he gives a fuck about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau or whatever, or Lena Khan, or some little policy pertaining to regulating an industry? He does not. That is absolutely not his top priority. He is disgusted and pissed off at the way that he was treated and the way that Trump was treated. That's his number one priority. He wants to abolish the deep state, and he wants to abolish the mainstream media, and he wants to come after these institutions that treated him so unfairly. That is his number one objective. And it's just obvious. Like, just put yourself in his shoes. Just think about that for a second. That is by far going to be the most important issue for him. I'd say the only thing that comes close to that is immigration. I think immigration for him is probably just super, super core ideologically, but practically, that's his number one issue. And Elon is aligned, and Elon is doing more than anyone ever could to eat at these power centers and dismantle these power centers. And I've talked about this in previous videos, how we need to be very thankful to Elon. Go back and watch yesterday. I did a stream reacting to Brett Weinstein on Joe Rogan's podcast. I talk about that there, why we need to be so thankful to Elon for what he's doing in shining a light on the corruption that's occurring in our government. But at the end of the day, that is an infinitely more important issue for Bannon and for Trump and for everyone involved. They have been absolutely railroaded by these institutions, and they feel very, very hurt. And so they're going to ally with Elon as long as he's able to do what he's doing. They are eating this up. This is exactly what they wanted. So this is a fake scandal. They can disagree. They can go at each other. Bannon, I think, is overly skeptical of tech, but it's warranted. I understand why he has an anti-tech bias, because he feels like he's been wronged by them. I think he takes it too far. I think both of them have a slightly wrong view on immigration. I think Elon Musk sometimes maybe has naive views of a meritocracy that I don't fully agree with, but it's complicated. I think Vivek had, unfortunately, a much worse view of meritocracy, because what came out, the reason why this H-1B visa scandal basically was very bad for Vivek's image is because when he wrote out his thinking, people could sense there was a bit of, what would be the word? There was just a bit of resentment, and he kind of was looking down on people, and there's a little bit of contempt there. Like, he was talking about Americans, and you just sensed that he had a bit of contempt, where he had a specific cultural view and he looked down on other people. And it just wasn't like a dispassionate, like, policy disagreement. There was something a little personal there, and people picked up on that in the way that he wrote his justification. And it just was condescending, and it rubbed people the wrong way. And that's why that really hurt him politically, whereas that was not where Elon was coming from. Elon just genuinely said, I want to hire the best people and for my companies, and it makes sense. So that the H-1B visa is not going to drive a wedge between them. That's not a big enough disagreement. There's just there's a back and forth. It's just a natural thing. People push each other. It's a good thing to have a healthy debate inside a political coalition. That's a good thing. It's healthy, and I'm all for it. So keep the criticism coming, Bannon, towards Musk, and Musk, please keep going at Bannon. Let's not go too far, but let's keep each other honest. And I just wish, because again, I have been a long time listener of Breaking Points, and before that, their other show. I want them to come back to their roots, and I want them to just be more even, like be something that someone who is on either side of the aisle can enjoy and learn from. And I think that they're just so left that it's just not a reasonable way of covering it. And people will basically get the wrong idea, and they'll listen to a few things, the way that they frame it, like, oh, Elon Musk, he just wants power. Oh, he's South African, he's racist. They'll just hear those things, and then they'll assume that there was evidence for that when there's not. And it's just literally the most negative framing of the actual facts possible. And it's false, because nothing is ever as bad as it seems in every possible way. There's always nuance. So this is a call for more balanced coverage from Breaking Points. Thank you, everybody. If you like this, please subscribe. I make lots of videos Monday through Friday. I stream for hours. So there's lots of content. And if you like it, please like and comment. If you disagree with me, you want to debate, I will respond. I will debate you.